The textiles on the booth were sticky with syrup. And the waitress kept refilling our water like she was trying to drown a fire she couldn't see. My sister leaned so close, the scent of her hair oil and old shampoo pressed against my cheek, and said, "Use Mom's card." The noise in the diner slid under my skin, plates clattering, a baby hiccuping in a far booth. The TV above the register looping a traffic helicopter over the 405. I stared at the bill. $7,800. The numbers had a quiet, cruel confidence. Like they knew something I didn't. She had folded the paper in half, then quarters. So it was this thick little tongue of a thing that I kept smoothing flat, as if more surface would mean less damage. Outside, Los Angeles was white bright and already hot, though it was barely 10:40 a.m. It's the kind of morning that made every shadow look suspicious. My heart beat out a small song I knew too well. Fix it, hide it, smooth it, smile. "I don't have Mom's card," I said. She cocked an eyebrow. "Yes, you do." And in that small pause before I answered, I remembered her last text from the night before. "You in LA. Need you like now." I'd taken a red eye, because that's what I do, fly into fires with a small travel backpack and a face that says I know where the exits are. I have my card. The paper trembled in my hand. The bill was from a lounge I'd never heard of, with soft consonants and a private door. The itemized list looked wrong. Like a grocery receipt from a casino. 4 bottle service premium platinum at $1,450 each. Gratuity preed. An expedite fee of $950. Performance fee of $600. Table reservation guarantee at $1,200. A line item I still don't fully understand, labeled compliance at $150. There was a timestamp, 2:12 a.m., and a scribbled signature that didn't look like anyone's I knew. At the bottom was a last line, balance $7,800. The paper caught the light and my stomach pitched. She pressed her phone against my arm. On the lock screen was a selfie from hours earlier. Her squashed between faces I didn't recognize, grainy sparkles on someone's cheekbones. A hulking champagne bottle, a caption tag of the lounge. "It got out of hand," she said softly, as if naming it could shrink it. "I can't afford it." "You know I can't. I thought just once the other people said they'd cover their parts, and then they left. My card bounced. They held my ID. They said they'll call the cops." "Why would you think I had Mom's card?" "You always handle things." She shrugged, a small child's shrug inside a grown woman's shoulders. "You took it after the hospital in April. For the prescriptions." I stared at her. The hospital in April, the night Mom slipped in the shower. The anesthesiologist pencil tapping the clipboard. The nurse in blue compressing the vein. I had taken the card then, yes, but I'd slid it back into the envelope with Mom's checkbook 2 days later. I put it back. I put it in her file cabinet. Left side. Manila folder that says auto insurance. "I texted you a photo, remember?" My sister's mouth opened and closed like the memory was a fly she couldn't catch. The TV above us switched to breaking news about a house fire in Studio City and a puppy rescued by a man in shorts. I felt years of small frictions line up. The time she asked for a bit of rent help that became 6 months. Me covering a retainer for an acting coach she never met. The Venmo requests with the light-hearted notes, "Pay me later," that were a joke only from one side. "Let's go back to the beginning," I said. "What happened last night?" She wiped her forehead with a napkin and stared at the chrome napkin dispenser as if it might volunteer to pay. "It was supposed to be a birthday thing for Kira. We were at his place first." She meant Nico, my sister's on-off boyfriend who designed merch for indie bands and kept a drum kit in his living room. He said he had a hookup at the lounge. Bottle service comped if we posted about it. I swear that's what he said. Then his friend Nate with the mustache said they'd get us in. There was this host guy. The minute we sat, they brought 4 bottles. I thought we were still in the comp zone. I had like 2 sips. And then she lifted her hands. I should not have signed anything. But they put the bill on a black tray and said if we wanted to leave with our dignity, we'd settle. I put my card down because everyone looked at me. And Nico was like, "Babe, do this and I'll send you the money first thing." But he didn't. And then he left. They all left. Her voice broke sharp. The manager said they were calling the police if I bounced. They said they'd send collections. They said they had my prints and camera footage. She ducked her head and I suddenly saw the 6-year-old version of her that used to copy my homework in pencil and laugh when I told her that was not how you make cursive turn into letters. At the edge of the table, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line, "A thin blade. Final notice, expense report overdue." I turned the screen over. "You need to call them," I said. "Ask for a manager and get it in writing that the others left and it wasn't agreed. Ask for an itemized detail emailed to you. Ask what the performance fee is. I can't call. I'm going to throw up if I call." "I'll call." I pulled the bill toward me and took a photo with my phone, then a second one of the fuzzy signature, then the line items. I typed the lounge's name into Maps. For stars, a profile photo that looked like an anemic velvet couch. I pressed the call button. "Hi," I said when a woman picked up bright and flat. "I'm calling about a bill from last night." I read the check number, the timestamp. My sister was part of a group and let me pull up the check. She said, "Already bored." The hold music was soft jazz that made me want to run. The woman came back. "Yes, we have balance due." The card attempted was declined. "It is on hold with ID." My sister says the reservation was presented as a collaboration comped with posts. A sigh. "We do not comp bottle service. We partner with artists who sign agreements. Everyone signs a card slip upon entry." "Could you email me?" I said calmly. "The receipt, the signed slip, and the footage you said you have." "Footage?" She laughed. "We don't provide that." "What about the names of the other people who were on the table?" "We do not provide that. If the balance is not paid by Monday, 5 p.m., we forward to collections. There is a photo of the ID. It is a valid ID." I closed my eyes. "Can I speak to your manager?" "I am the manager." The line buzzed quiet around her words. "Balance, $7,800. We add 15% late fee if unpaid by Monday." "Thank you," I said, and hung up before my mouth could say anything that might turn a wall into a mountain. My sister watched me like a dog watches a door. "So, you got hustled," I said softly, "but you may still be on the hook." I didn't say the other part out loud, that the world had a way of lining its hustles at people like my sister, hopeful. It's pretty eager to be invited, Dan, then calling it a learning experience. "You should file a dispute with your bank, but they'll ask for proof you didn't agree." She wiped at her eyes with the heels of her hands. "Can we use Mom's card?" "Just this once." "I'll pay it back." "I will." I thought about Mom, about the way she had said back in April when I tucked her into bed and put ice under her ankle, "You girls figure it out between you." She hadn't meant figure out how to drain her savings to patch each crisis. She'd meant figure out how to grow up. The TV above us showed a clip of a dog in a little firefighter outfit. Somewhere I heard the faint beep of a square reader. The bodega next door selling gum. "I'm not using Mom's card," I said. "And you're not either." My sister's face tightened. "So you flew here just to lecture me?" "I flew here because you said you needed me." "I need you to help," she snapped. Then quieter, "You're always so righteous." It stung. It always did. The righteousness I carried had never felt like a sword. It felt like a splint. I tucked the bill into my bag. "Let's go," I said. "We're going to your place. We're going to gather receipts, texts, anything. We're going to make a file." She groaned. "A file." "A file," I repeated. Even the word calmed me. A plan was a thing with walls. She lived in a 1-bedroom in Koreatown with a lemon tree view from the bathroom window if you stood on the edge of the tub. As we walked in, the light fell in squares on the floor like a promise that the day would continue whether or not we did. The living room had a futon that had shed its dignity, a coffee table of rescued plywood. A mural on the wall made by a friend who was always almost famous. There were dishes in the sink, a blue velvet dress draped over a chair, and a sticky spot on the counter that smelled like recent sugar. I made us both tea. She chewed on her fingernail and then watched, silent, as I opened my laptop. First, I said we write down everyone who was there. She rattled off me, Nico, Kira, Nate, that girl with the tiny glasses, Jules. And to friends of Kira's, I think their names were Sean and Hollywood. I swear that's what they call him. What's Nico's last name again? Madeira. I typed Nico Madeira. Then I started a folder called Lounge 0917, even though it was technically the 18th now. The date would anchor me. I created a doc, timeline. Another one, receipts. A third, contacts. I took the photos I'd snapped of the bill and dragged them into the folder. I opened my notes app and searched Mom's card. Envelope hospital until the photo of Mom's cabinet popped up, my hand pointing to the file with a caption I'd written in April left side. You said put it back. I screenshotted that too. Useless to the lounge, but useful to me. Are you building a case? My sister said, half mocking, half awe. I'm building a record, I said. So when you call the bank, you can show them what happened. You'll need to file a police report too. A police report. She blanched. On myself. On the situation. I took a breath. And you're going to call Nico. I typed the time in the timeline. 11:18 a.m. Began compiling records. You're going to ask him to send you his share. $1,950. He promised to cover first thing. Her laugh was colorless. Heel ghost. Then we get that in writing too. At 11:22 a.m., she texted him. I need your share from last night. You promised you'd send first thing. $19.50. It sat blue on her screen like a tiny brave soldier. 2 minutes later, the dots appeared, then went away, then reappeared. At 11:26 a.m., his reply arrived. Babe, I'm WU, always. It's not that deep. Chill. I'll get you when my client pays. When? I said. Whenever he gets a client, she mumbled. Follow up, I said. She typed, when? I need it by today. They're holding my ID at the lounge. They're threatening collections. He wrote back at 11:28 a.m. LOL. They always say that. Tell him, I know the owner, do you? I asked. She winced. I don't think so. She texted again. Send something now. $500, anything. No reply. We spent 3 hours building the file. I pulled her location history and found the time she'd arrived at and left the lounge. I matched them to the timestamp on the bill. I screenshotted Nico's replies. I found a photo on Kira's Instagram, timestamped 12:51 a.m. of a gold-lit table with 4 bottles in a row, tagged Best Night Grateful Lalala. In the comments, someone had written, who paid though, with a skull emoji. Kira had replied, teamwork makes the dream work. Screenshotted that too. I added a document, social posts, with URLs and timestamps and my sister's notes. I had one drink, I swear. At 1:07 p.m., I made a new subfolder. Financial, opened my email and stared at the subject lines, fighting for. Me. Final notice, expense report overdue and reminder. Mediation at 3 p.m. The first was from my job HR at a small tech company where the CEO wrote Slack messages like riddles and the couloir shoes that gleamed like he wasn't tired. The mediation was from a complaint I'd filed, almost invisible, about the same CEO expensing personal dinners with a woman who showed up as consultant in our vendor list but felt like something else. The expense report overdue was mine. I had delayed it on purpose. I'd been collecting receipts from my own life, apparently. Do you need to work? My sister asked, guilty edges on each word. I can do both, I said, and I meant it. In the exhausted way people who carry too many bags say, I've got it. At 1:31 p.m., we called her bank. The whole time was 20 minutes. A representative named Avery picked up with a voice like dental floss. I gave my sister the nod and watched her speak, carefully, as if each word was a stepping stone. I'd like to dispute a charge, she said. It was a coerced signature under misrepresentation. Avery asked for more. My sister read the bill number, the lounge name, the timestamp. I have a photo of the bill, she said, and messages from the people who said they would pay, and a post by the lounge indicating we were their guests at 10:32 p.m. She looked at me. I nodded. We had found a story post in the lounge's highlights that said, "Celebrating our guests at Kira_Ina_City. I had recorded it on my phone with a screen recording and saved it to the folder." Avery typed, then explained the bank's needs, a police report, documentation of the dispute, any third-party verification. "We'll provisionally credit you if we see reasonable basis," she said. "But we need that report." "I understand," my sister said. Her mouth was set. I recognized it from the way she looked before auditions, department store perfume pooling in her clavicle. She ended the call, stared at the lemon tree outside, then looked back at me. "Where do we file the report?" "At the station," I said. "Or online, if the city allows. But in person is better." She groaned again. I touched her shoulder. "I'm coming with you." We spent the next hour printing the bill photo. Printing the Instagram posts, the text messages, the map location entries. I made her write a narrative in a doc titled Statement Draft from the first promise of a comp to the displaced bill. She wrote in bursts. The sentences messy but real. They said we got you and that it was promo. And then they brought 4 bottles. I signed because the manager said we need a card on file to hold the table. I said I had $200 and he said that's fine for the hold. When the bill came, they said the card was already processed, and I panicked. "You're brave," I said when she finished. "I'm just tired," she said. At 3:02 p.m., we sat in a plastic chair at the Mid-City station. The lobby had that clean fluorescence that makes you feel like a lie would wilt and die before it hit the counter. A young officer named Lopez took our report. My sister's voice got steadier with each fact. He nodded in the way of people who have heard it all. "This happens," he said gently. "Not exactly like this, but versions. Can you help?" My sister asked, small. "I can't make the lounge cancel a bill," he said, "but I can take your report. It shows you tried to address it legally. It helps your bank see intention. It gives you a paper trail if they send a collection agency. Can you add to the report that they threatened to call the police at the lounge?" I asked. He smiled. "I will add exact words you tell me they said." My sister repeated them. The manager said, "We will call police and you will be arrested if you leave without paying." "We have you on camera," he typed. The clock above his head moved to 3:28 p.m. and then 3:29, slow and unimpressed by our panic. We left with a case number on a thin slip of paper and instructions to check the online portal for the full copy. Outside, the heat had softened into afternoon. My sister held the paper like it was a badge. "What now?" "Now," I said, "we send everything in. We document again. And we call the lounge back, not to fight, but to put them on notice that you filed a police report and a bank dispute. You ask them to preserve footage for any investigations." "Preserve footage," she repeated as if testing a new language. "Say it again?" I smiled. "Preserve footage." We walked to a bodega and bought 2 cold teas. As we waited at the register, my phone buzzed again. The mediation reminder pulsed, insistent. My stomach flipped, remembering the Slack messages I had saved into a folder labeled expense abuses. The CEO drop-in time-stamped at restaurants with the consultant swiping the company card under the name of a vendor. The receipts looked similar to the lounges. Bottle service here. $1,250 there. Gratuity already added a room fee. The amounts weren't as high, but they were slow and steady. My job was to help set boundaries, but my job was also to keep my job. "What's that face?" my sister asked. I paid for the teas and shrugged. Work, we spent the evening uploading, writing, sending. At 5:41 p.m., my sister emailed her bank with the subject line, "Dispute of Charge, case number 2309184417. Documentation attached and included a PDF with 12 pages of screenshots. The police report number, a timeline. I taught her to be CC herself on the email so she'd have a record. At 6:12 p.m., we called the lounge again. The same manager. This time, My sister spoke. Her voice trembled, then steadied. I filed a police report, she said. I'm disputing the charge with my bank, and I'm asking you to preserve footage from 9:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. for the table. Reserved under Kira. I'm also requesting a copy of any signed agreements and the card authorization form. Ma'am, the manager said, the syllable, a door closing. The balance is due. I hear that, my sister said. I'm asking you to preserve footage. We'll see you in collections, the manager said, and hung up. My sister stared at the phone. She's not nice. She's a wall, I said. Walls aren't nice or not nice. I pulled her into a hug. But the case is built. We ate takeout dumplings on the floor, dipping them in a sauce that tasted like something I'd almost forgotten. A kitchen table, a family quiet. At 8:13 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new email. Subject line, mediation confirmed. I opened it. The consultant had agreed to the call tomorrow morning. My thumb hovered over reply. I could see the thread lined up like a chain. Invoices from her labeled strategy sessions with no agenda notes. My expense policy doc with the clause personal entertainment not reimbursable. The spreadsheet from accounting showing vendor Loomis Consulting at $4,800 a month. I'd brushed the receipts into a neat pile in a folder like a nerve. The same part of me that had built my sister's file had built my own. I need to prepare for work, I said. Work is about a $7,800 bill now, too. My sister asked a weak smile. In a way, we sat side by side on the futon, laptops open like wings. I wrote out a timeline much like my sister's, but in a calmer tone. On 5/21, reviewed expense report number 5,167 with charges at Bargram, $482 and Hotel Ort, $1,120 coded as client development. No client present. Referred to Policy Doc Section 3.2. On 6/8, noted vendor Loomis. Consulting increased to $4,800 from $1,600 without SAO. I attached screenshots of Slack messages where the CEO wrote, "Let's run this through Loomis Cleaner." And the consultant replied with a heart emoji. I named the doc mediation packet Expense Policy Boundaries. At 10:47 p.m., my sister fell asleep with her mouth slightly open, the blue light making a soft halo around her. I watched her for a minute. 21-year-old sleep settled over 29-year-old worries. I brushed a strand of hair from her face and thought of Mom. Our mother had raised us with lists and envelopes and a coffee can labeled house tax. She never said the word boundary, but she practiced it. No, we don't buy that this week. And yes, you can go to the dance, but be home by 10. When our father left, she added a line to the list. Make a plan when you can. I clicked into my calendar and set an alarm for 6:30 a.m. I wrote a message to myself in the task, app titled Boundaries. At 9 a.m., say what you know. Use the documents. Don't apologize for noticing. In the morning, the light over Koreatown was tender and orange, and someone downstairs was already frying onions. My sister blinked awake as I made coffee. Do we call the bank again? We wait for the police report, I said. But we can send the manager an email summarizing the call. Documentation is the spine. She groaned her way into a hoodie. You and your spines. I set a mug in front of her. Say it. She smirked. Preserve footage. At 8:55 a.m., I logged into the mediation call at the small desk in the corner of the living room. The CEO's video was off. The consultant's was on. She was backlit, pretty, in a white blouse that made her look reliable. Our HR consultant, a third-party mediator from a firm the board had hired, smiled in that careful way people do when they're about to talk about rules with people who hate rules. Thank you for joining, she said. We're here to clarify expense policy usage and vendor engagement. I kept my voice even. I've prepared materials. I shared my screen. The timeline appeared. I saw the consultant's face tilt slightly, intrigued, like a cat seeing its reflection. The policy mentions Section 3.2, personal entertainment. It also says we need a statement of work for any vendor over $2,000 monthly. The consultant spoke first. Loomis Consulting provides strategic thought partnership, she said. I'm on retainer to be available for ideation. Could you share the statement of work? I asked. The CEO unmuted. We're a startup, he said. We move fast. We don't always have time for paperwork. That's why we do, I said, and felt my heart go quiet. I went on. I've reviewed P-cards for the last 3 months. There are charges that look personal diners at 10:45 p.m. Bottle service coded as client development. Charges at clubs. I scrolled to the screenshots. These could be fine if they have a clearly documented business purpose and client attendees. But there aren't notes. The consultant crossed her legs. You're overreaching, she said lightly. This is small stuff. Small stuff is how we teach the system what we tolerate, I said. We can fix it. I'm not accusing anyone of a crime. I'm talking about clarity. I made myself breathe. I'm proposing we pause Loomis's invoices until we have a statement of work. We also institute a rule. Any expense over $200 for entertainment requires an email to finance stating business purpose and attendees. We'll do it for everyone. Silence, the kind that counts. The CEO spoke. Careful now. You sound like a cop. I sound like someone who read the policy we all agreed to, I said. The mediator smiled like she had been waiting for that line. That seems reasonable, she said. Let's document these next steps. The consultant tilted her head like a bird considering. I'm happy to provide a statement of work, she said. She was smooth. Good at this. But there was a crease between her eyebrows she hadn't planned for. I took a screenshot of the meeting with the timestamp in the corner, 9:18 a.m. after the call. I wrote a follow-up email per our conversation. Action items. 1. Loomis 2. Provide COAG Thursday. 2 expenses over $200 for entertainment will include business purpose and attendees. 3. Review of past 3 months for compliance. Attached mediation packet. I CC'd the CFO, who wrote back 3 minutes later with a terse received. I closed the laptop and found my sister sitting cross-legged on the floor scrolling the police portal. It posted, she said. She handed me the phone, a PDF with our case number and the officer's notes. I forwarded it to her bank contact, Avery, with the subject line, case number 2309184417, police report attached. At 11:04 a.m., Nico finally texted, You still mad? Babe, we can talk. He sent a gif of a raccoon washing something under a faucet, which was raw and pointless and somehow perfect. My sister didn't reply. At 11:23 a.m., he wrote, Your sister there? She's prob telling you to dump me. She's not wrong, my sister muttered. Tell him to send $500 by noon, I said. Say you'll reconsider the conversation after that. She typed, Send $500 by 12 p.m. today. Then we'll talk. He replied with a crying laugh emoji and then a bet. We had 2 hours until noon. We filled them with the slow grind of what comes after emergency. Tidying, making eggs, cleaning the sticky spot on the counter. At 12:14 p.m., no money had arrived. My sister's jaw tightened. This is so stupid, she said. I was dumb. I was drunk. I wanted to feel like I could do it. I wanted the photo. You wanted the story? I said gently. They offered you one. We walked to the bank branch anyway, just to feel like we were moving. On the way, my sister's phone chimed. $50 from Nico M. The note said, Proof of life. She stared at it. He thinks this is a joke. I put my hand on her back. He thinks this is still the story he wrote for you. At the branch, a teller told us kindly that disputes were handled by the online group. And I smiled because even help had its own boundaries. We went home. At 2:07 p.m., my sister received an email from Avery. We have provisionally credited $2,500 pending investigation. My sister read it twice. Is this real? It's a start, I said. At Loundan Sensharafen p.m. my phone rang. It was the CFO. His voice was maths and gravel. I got your email, he said. Thank you. Keep me looped. You're welcome, I said. He paused. You're catching heat, he added. but it's the right heat. That afternoon, my sister posted a photo of her lemon tree with a caption, "Not drinking this week." It was small and brave. At 4:10 p.m., Kira messaged her, "Girl, last night was wild. We'll get you back this weekend, promise." My sister typed and erased. Then she wrote, "Please send your share now. $1,200. She added her payment handle. Kira hearted the message and added a sparkle, like that made it currency. At 5:01 p.m., we were in the car headed to our mother's apartment. The late-day sun turned everything polite. Our mother lived in a low building with ivy that knew what it was doing. On the way up, my sister squeezed my hand. "Don't tell her," she whispered. "Why?" "She worries," she said. And for a moment, we were the children we once were. Achoo. Money clutched in our hands. The world on layaway. "Just not until we have a plan." "We have a plan," I said. "We're executing it." But I agreed. Mom opened the door with a smile that made me think of Sunday kitchens. She was wearing a soft cardigan I'd bought her on sale, and she smelled like lavender and something warm. "My girls," she said. She hugged us. "You're both here at the same time. Is it Christmas?" We sat at her table. There was a list on the fridge written in her tidy block letters. Milk, carrots, stamps, call Auntie Faye. She poured tea, even though it was hot outside. She asked about work. She asked about audition season. She didn't ask about money. Which was kindness and also perhaps a way not to ask about the things she felt humming under our words. "Remember when you made us envelopes?" My sister said suddenly, looking at her hands. Mom smiled. "Every Sunday." "I hated them," my sister said, but her voice was soft. "I wanted money to be like water." Mom nodded. "It is," she said. "But you build a riverbed. Or it just goes wherever." We left with a container of lentils and a flicker in my sister's face that looked like resolve. In the car, the sky was streaked with dusty pink. "I'm not using her card," my sister said finally. I squeezed the steering wheel. "I know," I said. "And I'm done with Nico." "Say it," I said. She smirked. "I'm done with Nico." The next days were a slow, steady drumbeat. At work, the consultant sent a formal statement of work that was a paragraph long and said nothing. The CFO thanked me again and looped in the board's audit chair. The CEO avoided me in hallways and sent me a Slack that read, "Would love to connect on building a more flexible culture around trust." I replied, "Same. Starting with trust that will follow the policy." The audit chair scheduled a meeting. I slept better. At home, my sister called the lounge, and though the manager refused to send footage, she did send a clearer copy of the signed authorization. The signature, while messy, was hers. My sister stared at it like a photograph of a person she knew only in nightmares. "That's my name," she whispered. "It is," I said, "and it's part of the story. But so is everything else." We sent the copy to the bank with our notes. We added to the file every day, A. Message from Kira with $300 and the note, "My bad." A long apology from Jules without money. Silence from Nate. My sister's case log grew like a small, stubborn plant. Sometimes at night we sat with candles and wrote down the sentences we wanted to believe. I wrote mine, "I can say no." She wrote hers, "I can be the kind of person who leaves when something feels wrong." We pinned them to the wall with washi tape like middle schoolers. One afternoon during week 2, the lounge called a different manager, his voice softer. His tone the shade of someone who'd been told to be nice. "We reviewed your file," he said. "We can offer a settlement." He named a number that made my sister bite her lip, $3,000. "But we need it by Friday. I will discuss with my bank," my sister said.com. "We have a provisional credit. Also, we have made a police report, case number 2309184417. And we are asking you to preserve footage." "Footage is for law enforcement only," he said. "We've preserved." "Please confirm that in writing," my sister said. He did. We saved the email. She asked me later what I thought. I said, "The bank will advise. But if you accept a settlement, it makes the dispute harder. And anyway, the others still owe you. The settlement doesn't mean you did wrong. It means you're paying for someone else's play." I always pay for someone else's play, she said. I held her gaze. Not anymore. In the third week, Nico reappeared with flowers that looked stolen from a restaurant lobby. My sister and I were coming up the stairs to her apartment when he popped out from behind the brittle palm. Baby, he said. He looked thinner, or maybe just more tactically arranged. He held the flowers like a white flag. Let me explain. Send money, my sister said. I will. I have a gig. It's just, he glanced at me. You know, things are complicated. You always make everything legal. It's like, not romantic. I'm not your romance, I said evenly. He laughed a little too loud. She used to be fun, he told me, like I'd been there. She's still fun, I said. She just doesn't pay to be invited to her own life. My sister leaned against the railing. $19.50, she said. By Friday? He looked wounded. You're gonna, put a number on it. She stared at him. That's what bills are. He looked at me like I could translate her into something he could use. I didn't. He sighed and left the flowers on the stairwell. We stepped around them. On Friday, he sent $1.50 with a note that said, "For you, babe." Then he fell back into the fog. On week 4, the bank sent a longer email. They needed a few more documents. And they scheduled a call with a fraud investigator named Thomas, who was patient, like a librarian. He asked my sister to walk him through the night, minute by minute. She did. He asked about drinks. She told the truth. He asked about the host, about the card on file. She answered, anchored by the timeline open on her screen. When the call ended, the email arrived. We will extend the provisional credit while we complete this investigation. Please note that this may take up to 90 days. My sister exhaled like she'd been holding something that finally put itself down. We made lentils and garlic bread and ate at the coffee table with our legs tucked under us. And for a moment, it felt like we were okay. The next morning, Mom called. I found the photo you sent in April, she said, of the card in the envelope. My intestines clenched. You keep such good records, she added. I'm proud. We tried to learn from the best, I said. My sister listened on speaker, eyes wide. Mom told us about the upstart cat in her alley. She told us about Auntie Faye's knee. Then she said, "You girls are figuring it out, aren't you?" "Trying," I said. "I can help," she said. "But I prefer to help with the labels for the jars, not by filling them." I smiled. That was Mom. "We'll take labels," I said. At work, the ripple effects moved like weather. The consultants so arrived, then vanished, then returned bloated with words. The board's audit chair asked to see me and then told me I had good instincts. The CEO, red-cheeked, began sending emails with "per our policy" in them, like a new language he had decided to learn for sport. A month later, the finance team sent a company-wide note. Entertainment expenses now require pre-approval over $200. People groaned in private channels. They sent me the groans, which I acknowledged with a smiley and a link to the policy. I became unexpectedly a person others came to with small, quiet questions. Is it okay if I expense pizza for the team on Saturday? Yes. What about a coffee with a candidate? Course. Is it okay if I bring my girlfriend to the offsite? Sure. If she's not on payroll and we're not paying her airfare? The boundaries made some people bristle and made others sigh with relief. I felt a new place inside me settle. Work justice can be a spreadsheet and a sentence at a time. At home, my sister started taking shifts at a friend's boutique. She brought home grapes in a paper bag and a smile that lasted through dinner. She texted me less about collapse and more about auditions. She blocked Nico's number. She paid Kira a kindness I would not have. She sent her the link to the police report and wrote, "This is the case number if you need to reference it when you're paying me." Kira replied, "You're so official, lol." But the next day, another $300 arrived. Money began to accumulate like pebbles in a jar. In the evenings, we made a checklist that felt like a small miracle of self-respect. We called it Boundaries in Action because it made us laugh to act like we were a little nonprofit. It was not a list to hand to the world. It was for us. We checked off boxes like, wait, 24 hours before? Saying yes when something feels icky and ask for the total to be told. Allowed before signing anything. and tell Mom the thing before someone else does. We stuck it on the fridge. We put a little smiley face next to preserve footage because inside jokes are a kind of glue. When the lounge's collections department sent a letter printed, official, with all caps warnings, my sister scanned it and sent it to the bank. She also wrote back to collections, kind but precise. The charge is under dispute. See case no? Please correspond via email. I request no phone calls. She copied me and then printed it for her records. I watched her name appear at the bottom of the letter and felt something like pride swell so big it was almost grief. In month 2, I realized I was tired in a way that sleep didn't touch. The adrenaline of crisis had drained, and what was left was work and kindness, neither of which is photogenic. I took a weekend and visited Mom alone. We sorted her papers and relabeled envelopes. I found the photo I'd taken in April of the card back in its folder. And I slipped a sticky note under it, left here on 04/17 with love. Mom made pancakes and told me that when we were toddlers. She used to count our fingers and toes once a week, just to make sure we were all still here. I wish I could do that now, she said. Count all your pieces and keep them all. You are, I said. On a Tuesday in late October, my sister called me from the boutique. He came in, she whispered. Nico? No, she said, as if she were telling me a ghost had become a tree. The lounge manager? The nice one. He bought socks. He recognized me. She laughed a nervous wind. He said he was off duty, but he said this is weird. He said he didn't like how they pressured me. He didn't say it quite like that, but he said, you didn't look like you knew what you were signing. And I said, I didn't. He said he'd email me a letter for the bank saying I signed a card authorization for hold, not for purchase. He said it's not official, just his observation. Did he send it? He just did. She forwarded it. The letter was brief but steady, on the lounge's letterhead, signed by the manager. It didn't say the lounge would cancel the bill. It didn't say it was their fault. But it said what he had seen. We added it to the file and sent it to Avery with a small prayer pressed between the lines. 2 weeks later, the bank's final letter arrived. Dispute resolved in your favor. The words took me a good minute to believe. They reversed the charge. The provisional credit solidified. They sent a small pamphlet with how to avoid future disputes and a thin pen I knew no one would use. My sister screamed into a pillow and then danced around the apartment, her socks slipping on the floor so that she looked like a joyful loony cartoon. She stopped and looked at me, tears on her face. And we laughed so hard it felt like washing something we didn't know had gotten so dirty. We called Mom. She cried too, gently, like she'd been waiting to release a small corner of air. Good, she said. That's good. She didn't lecture. She said it was time for soup. My sister sent Kira a message. Bank resolved in my favor. I still expect your share. If I don't have $600 by Friday, I'll file in small claims. Kira sent a string of WOWs and then $200, and then on Friday, another $400 arrived. It was not the whole. Nate vanished into the LA mist. Jules sent a long text about shame and therapy and a $50 transfer. My sister put that in the jar too. It felt equal parts petty and pure. Maybe that's what justice sometimes is. Small and not symmetrical and still a difference. At work, the changes stuck. The CFO opened a training session titled Ethical Spending and asked me to host. I built slides with restrained little jokes and many receipts. I didn't say anyone's name. I told a story about us as a company choosing to be the kind of people who make it easy to do the right thing. For the first time, I saw certain heads lift and nod at the same time. And it felt like seeing a school of fish turn together a quiet, orderly miracle. The consultant stepped down. She sent a graceful email about transitioning her practice and gratitude. I wished her well. The CEO avoided my eyes for a while, and then one afternoon in the hallway he said, partly sincere, partly stung, "You saved me from myself." I smiled in a way that said, "You saved you. We don't have to be friends, but we can be clean." I kept all my folders. I kept the copies and the timelines and the PDFs in the little note. Where my sister wrote, "I can leave when something feels wrong," I made a new folder called Family Boundaries Templates, where I stored a blank timeline doc, a dispute letter template, a list of the sentences that had worked. Please confirm in writing. And I request that you preserve footage, and I will communicate in writing. On a chilly morning in November, a friend of a friend called and said her landlord was trying to keep her deposit. I sent her the templates. She wrote back 2 weeks later with a photo of a check and a dozen heart emojis. As the new year edged in, my sister got a small part on a commercial. She cried when she booked it because it didn't feel like a savior. It felt like work. She filed her first expense report for the wardrobe pieces. She'd bought $118 for shoes, $12, 54 socks, and, she asked me 3 times if she should keep the receipts, and I said, always. She joked that she'd named a potted plant preserve footage, and we laughed so hard I startled the cat. We drew boundaries in chalk and then went over them in pen. We missed sometimes. We said yes to things we should have declined, but we got better at practicing the pause. I started running in the mornings, small circles through the neighborhood. The light at 6:30 a.m. was the kind that made me feel like I could write a new boundary around my own body with my breath. In February, I launched a little lunchtime series at work. We called it Real Life Boundaries because we were tired of euphemisms. Each Thursday, someone shared a story of a vendor asking for cash under the table, a family request that stretched into a web, a relationship where just this once turned into always. We didn't fix them on the spot. We just mapped the edges. People came. They brought their own contracts. Someone brought cookies. The room was full in a way that felt like not being in trouble. One Thursday, my sister came as a guest. She stood at the front in her lemon-colored sweater and told the story of the $7,800 bill. She told it with a lightness that wasn't dismissive. She said the number like she could hold it now. She made people laugh. She used the phrase preserve footage, and the whole room smiled like they'd been waiting for it. At the end, she said, I'm not a cautionary tale. I'm a person who wanted a big night. Now I want a big life. People clapped. One woman came up afterward and said her brother was in a deep spending hole with a friend group that made him feel small. My sister gave her my template folder. Start with the timeline, she said. Make a file. That night, my sister and I sat on the floor again with tea. The lemon plant had 3 lemons on it, fat and confident. I know this isn't about money, she said. Not really. I mean, it is. But it's also about not being the girl who apologizes for noticing. You're not that girl, I said. I still have to pay Mom back for the thing in June, she said. Not the card. The hotel thing. We'll make a plan, I said. We always do. I thought then about the little letters we'd written and taped to the wall. I thought about the file folders on my laptop and the envelopes in Mom's drawer. I thought about the way the world tried to sell us a story, where quiet was weakness and rules were a trap, and you had to be cool enough to ignore your own boundaries. I didn't believe that anymore. I believed in seeing. Spring came soft. The audit chair asked me to create an ethics committee. I found 4 people who didn't love attention but loved lists. We built a process like a simple bowl. We wrote a shared statement. We agreed to ask for clarity, to document, and to be kind. We put it on the intranet. People shrugged, then quietly started to use it. We held our first review and found nothing inflammatory, just some sloppy practices we tuned up. It was a relief. Not every story needed a villain. Some just needed adults. On a Sunday, my sister and I visited Mom again. We cooked soup. We watched a movie about a singer who loses and then finds her voice. Halfway through, Mom paused the TV and said, out of nowhere, you can use my card if you're stuck. She said it with love, not with obligation. I know, my sister said, but I won't. Mom nodded. Good, she said. Then she unpaused the TV and reached for her tea. Sometimes I still dream about the bill. In the dream, the number is embossed and gleaming, and I keep trying to fold it until it disappears. In the dream, my sister whispers, use Mom's card. And I see my hands older than I remember, steady reach into my bag. But instead of a card, I pull out a folder. It makes me laugh even while I sleep. I hand the folder to my sister. In the dream, we walk together to a desk that appears out of nowhere and start to write. The room is bright. There's a lemon on the table. We begin with a sentence that has become a kind of spell for us on 0917 at 10:32 p.m. The story began. When the story had fully turned from a pit to a path, I got a message from someone in my inbox I didn't know. She had read a post my sister wrote about the lemon tree. She wrote that she had a brother who owed her money and a boyfriend who borrowed her car and a boss who called her sweetheart and took cash from her petty cash drawer for cabs and forgot to pay it back. She wrote, "How do you even start?" I typed back without overthinking. "You start with a timeline," I wrote. "You write down facts as if you were someone else's advocate. You gather receipts. You decide what boundary you want. You say it out loud once in a room with no one else, just to hear your voice. Then you say it again to the person who needs to hear it. If they don't listen, then you repeat and walk." I attached my template. I added in the subject line, "From one big life to another." She wrote back a week later with a photo of a small plant on a windowsill and a note. I asked for my money. He laughed. Then he paid me. I still feel shaky. But I did it. I looked at the plant. It wasn't a lemon. It looked like a succulent that didn't need much. It was perfect. Months after the bank closed my sister's case, the lounge sent one last letter. It was a form likely automated. "We have closed our file," it said, "and wish you well." We laughed at that. Then we folded it and put it in the file. We decided to keep the file forever. Not out of bitterness, but because the story had a beginning and a middle and an end. And one day someone else might need the map. Sometimes when the light gets low in the kitchen and the dishes are done and the apartment smells like soap. My sister and I sit on the floor and write new future lines. "I will not put my emergency in someone else's hands." I wrote once and she nodded. "I will not make my life smaller so someone else can feel big," she wrote, and I put a star next to it. We keep the notes in a jar. We don't look at them every day. We don't need to. They're there if we forget. On my walk to work, I pass a cafe that puts their policy on a sandwich board. No cash. No substitutions. No refunds. It used to make me roll my eyes like relax. But now I think that's a boundary. It tells you what to expect. And behind it, a human making coffee can just make coffee. The last time we went to Mom's, she handed me an envelope. I checked the label out of habit. It said Girls Trip Fund. Inside was $120. I looked up. "You're saving for us," I said. She shrugged. "Maybe Yosemite? Maybe a show?" "We'll add to it," my sister said, and took out her wallet. She put $20 in on the spot. I did too. We laughed because 20 was nothing and everything. We sealed the envelope. We put it in the drawer. Mom closed it and patted it like a small pet. Walking back to the car, my sister wrapped her arm through mine. "If I ever say use Mom's card again, you won't," I said. "I won't," she said. We both smiled. The street was quiet. Somewhere a child's scooter hit a crack and righted itself. We breathed. The night was ordinary, which felt extraordinary. We got in the car. We didn't turn on the radio. We drove home. Have you ever set a boundary that changed everything? Share it if you want 10. Subscribe for more true style stories.